Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class from Canto 1, Chapter 19, Text 36, and we are fortunate to have Her Grace Vrindavanesvari Radhika Devidasi from ISKCON, Philadelphia, to give a class. Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Good morning, everyone. Please accept my obeisances. All glories to Prabhupada. So we'll jump in. Jai.
It's all yours. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Giravardhari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Giravardhari Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Giravardhari Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Asatari Sata His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Asatari Sata His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Prem Sikha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadara Shiva Sati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakund Radhakund Gita Govardhan Ki Jai. Mayapurdam Ki Jai. Vrindavanam Ki Jai. Chamuna Devi Ki Jai. Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. ISKCON Harrisburg Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Bol. All glories the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, Hare Hare Bol. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminati Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravana Pacharane. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashya Tate Shatarane. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottama Devam Sarasvatim Vyashyam Jadutaya Madhurya Nastaprayashu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloki Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. So here we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 19th chapter, verse 36. So I'll repeat the verse 3 times, and then anyone else who'd like to chime in can do so. Anyata te vatyagatir darshanam na katam nrinam nitaram mrinyam manamam shamsidasya vanishyasya. Anyata te vakshat gater darshanam na katam nrinam nitaram reyam mam nam samshidasya vanishyasha. Anyata te vakta gatar darshinam na katam nrinam nitaram reyam mam nam samshidasya vaniyasha. Anyone else like to chant?
Anyata te vetagate darshanam na katam nrinam itaram riyamananam samsidasya vaniyasha.
An etha te bayektagatera darsanam na katham neenanam taram riyamananam samsiddhasya vanisa. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else like to try?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Anyatha te vaktagater darshanam na katham nrinam नितरां म्रियमाणानां संसिदस्य वनीयसः.
Okay, great. So we'll do word for word. Anyata, otherwise, te, your, avaktagate, of those whose movement are invisible, of one whose movement are invisible. Darshanam, meeting, na, for us, katham, how, nrinam, of the people, nitaram, specifically, mriyamananam, of those who are about to die, sanshidasya, of one who is all perfect, vaniyashya, voluntary appearance. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Otherwise, without being inspired by Lord Krishna, how is it that you have voluntarily appeared here, but you are moving incognito to the common man and are not visible to us who are on the verge of death? Purport. The great sage Shukadev Goswami was certainly inspired by Lord Krishna to appear voluntarily before Maharaj Parikshit, the great devotee of the Lord, just to give him the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam. One can achieve the nucleus of devotional service of the Lord by the mercy of the spiritual master and the personality of Godhead. The spiritual master is the manifested representative of the Lord to help one achieve ultimate success. One who is not authorized by the Lord cannot become a spiritual master. Srila Sukadev Goswami is an authorized spiritual master, and thus he was inspired by the Lord to appear before Maharaj Parikshit and instruct him in the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam. One can achieve the ultimate success of going back to Godhead if he is favored by the Lord sending his true representative. As soon as a true representative of the Lord is met by a devotee of the Lord, the devotee is assured a guarantee for going back to Godhead just after leaving the present body. This, however, depends on the sincerity of the devotee himself. The Lord is seated in the heart of all living beings, and thus he knows very well the movements of all individual persons. As soon as the Lord finds that a particular soul is very eager to go back to Godhead, the Lord at once sends his bona fide representative. The sincere devotee is thus assured by the Lord of going back to Godhead. The conclusion is that to get the assistance and help of a bona fide spiritual master means to receive the direct help of the Lord himself. Om Jnana Timaranjasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmalatam Yena Tashme Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadadi Sadpadantikam. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadara Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Namam Vishwamaya Krishna Sai Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Chara Swaminiti Namane Snikta Chaitasya Pranita Bhagwanam Tarasa Plutam Prabhupada Gata Prananam Bhakti Charapada. So I'll read the translation again. Otherwise, without being inspired by the Lord, how is it that you have voluntarily appeared here, that you are moving incognito to the common man and are not visible to us who are on the verge of death? So in this past time, Maharaj Parikshit, as we know, has been cursed to die in 7 days because he was bitten by the snake bird. And Maharaj Parikshit, as we've talked about before, Maharaj Parikshit handles this situation very magnanimously. He very gracefully. He accepts the offense that he made toward the sage. He accepts the curse of the sage's son. He very much embraces the fact that he's going to die, hoping that it will prevent his progeny, the future generation, from receiving any sort of negative effects from his misdeeds there with his behavior. So Maharaj Parikshit is very much ready to receive this Srimad Bhagavatam, the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam. We know that his heart is sincere. He's a great devotee of the Lord. And even the mistake that he made, the offense he made against the sage, it's said to be, this is all, kind of ordained by the Lord, ordained by Krishna to have occurred, because it kicks off the turning of the yugas. So this is really, this is, all of these things are how we come to understand the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it enables the Srimad Bhagavatam to be recited so that we can also bring it to the present day. And one of the things that Prabhupada says here that's really, really important is that a sincere devotee, the authorized spiritual master can come, but it's only the sincerity of the devotee that determines whether or not they go back to Godhead. And Krishna knows everything. that Krishna knows everything. And there's several chapters, and Srila Prabhupada in his purport referenced a couple of different Bhagavad Gita verses, but two of them he referenced in this verse at the end of his purport, where he refers to the Lord is situated in everyone's hearts. This is a very well-known verse in Bhagavad Gita, and there's actually three verses technically really that have this theme. But Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hirdideshe Arjuna Tishtati Brahmanyam Sarvabhutani Yantaran Rudani Mayaya. And the translation for this verse is, the Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. And so we know that Krishna is in our hearts as super soul. He tells us this multiple times in Bhagavad Gita, in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So that verse was from the 18th chapter. But in the 7th chapter, he says here, I am in everyone's heart as a super soul. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make his faith steady so he can devote himself to that particular deity. So he's saying even there, he's situated in everyone's heart as super soul, and whatever the desires are of the living entity, he can help facilitate that. And another verse where he's referring to himself as sitting in everyone's heart is in the 15th chapter. He says, I am seated in everyone's heart, and for me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So here, these three different verses in three very different sections of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's reminding us that he's in our hearts, and he's in our hearts as super soul, which is a really important thing to consider in our spiritual activities, that no matter what we are doing in our spiritual activities, whatever presentation we are making, whatever we are doing externally, that Krishna is in our hearts and he knows everything. So we can't really get away from that reality that Krishna's there. Krishna's in our hearts, monitoring and seeing everything that's going on within us. So this is a good thing. We can't hide from Krishna. But here, Maharaj Parikshit, because of super soul, sees that Maharaj Parikshit is a very, very sincere devotee of the Lord. And so he sends his most esteemed teacher, Sukadev Goswami, to come and appear before Maharaj Parikshit. And this is really, he came here. He's Sukadev Goswami is coming. He sees the sincerity, and he is a bona fide messenger, a bona fide teacher of the Lord. And so by delivering the Srimad Bhagavatam, he's also giving Maharaj Parikshit the chance to go home back to Godhead, because in Maharaj Parikshit's final 7 days, he made that choice to hear, that Shravanam. He made that choice to hear in his final days, hear the pastimes of the Lord. And that's a very important distinction. He didn't run around trying to say goodbye to his family and have his last bits of enjoyment and a final meal. And he was fasting in the forest, hearing and receiving instructions, and receiving the teachings of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so there's a couple of really important pearls in this verse, but it's in this purport especially. Prabhupada gives us some very important teaching pearls that we hear throughout Bhagavad Gita. We attend other types of classes, and those pearls are, one, that an authorized spiritual master is our best opportunity to really go back to Godhead. The second one is that the Lord is really the one ultimately giving that mercy. And the third one is that the Lord is in our hearts, so he knows our true intentions in life. So the sincerity of the individual is really what's determining our next lifetime. And it's really the sincerity of the devotee is also what's determining how the spiritual master approaches us. And in our we might think in our mind, well, I can read Bhagavad Gita on my own. I could, I don't necessarily need a teacher, or I could, find my way to God. If God's in my heart, then I have my own individual relationship with God. And that's very true. And God is there as super soul. However, if we really want to advance, if we really truly want to advance in this path, and that's really that's the determining factor is our desire to advance and our desire to really go to God, to Krishna, to really cultivate a relationship with Krishna. And if that's our true goal, then we want to take that under the authority of someone who it's also their goal. And so, because while Krishna is in our hearts as super soul, we also have these material energies all around us that are convoluting things. And so we might have this very strong desire, the strong goal to have a relationship with Krishna, but the material energies are always there interacting with us, through the modes of material nature. So we have these different pulls on us. And I've talked about this a lot in classes about the concept of Maya, the Mahamaya and Yogamaya. So Mahamaya is really there helping to facilitate our material desires. She's not a bad, she's not bad. She's actually a servant of the Lord, and she is just doing her job. She's just facilitating our material desires. The more that we identify our material desires, the more that we understand our true internal hankerings, that Maya is also identifying and drawing upon. The more that we understand those two, the more we can say, wait a minute, I see that I have this material desire within me. I'm going to continue to just pray and put my life in a way, situate myself in life so that I can focus my energies towards service of the Lord. And so when we continue to cultivate that desire, then we will naturally attract the mercy of the spiritual master and the mercy of the Lord. But, even when we're reading Bhagavad Gita, and this is something that's really important to remember, if we're reading Bhagavad Gita as it is, Prabhupada is writing the purports for us. So Prabhupada, in effect, you're coming in contact with the spiritual master. You're coming in contact with the founder Acharya. And he was very much, authorized, as I see it, very much authorized by the Lord to provide these teachings. How could one man have done so much in so little time? So he was clearly an authorized representative of the Lord. So even if we just think that, we can do this on our own, if we're reading Bhagavad Gita and studying Bhagavad Gita, we're still doing it through the mercy of Prabhupada, because it's through that mercy, through that love, that he provided these teachings to us through his purports and through the proper understanding. The reason he named it Bhagavad Gita as it is because there are so many different interpretations of Bhagavad Gita that are out there. And so many of them take a more academic approach. They look at everything as allegory. It's an allegorical representation. But Prabhupada emphasizes this is not allegory. This happened 5,000 years ago. This Krishna came and spoke these words. So he's taking on the authority. This is Krishna speaking to us directly. And Prabhupada, as a representative of the Lord, this is one of the ways that we can also help see that Prabhupada's representative of the Lord, because he's saying, these aren't my words. I'm just giving you what Krishna gave 5,000 years ago. And so we can see that a true representative is not trying to concoct. They're not trying to, manifest their own interpretation. Prabhupada is very much so seeing these as, this is the words of the Lord. This has come through the disciplic succession, and Prabhupada's drawing upon that disciplic succession very, very carefully, very carefully. So in his purports are very much drawing from the disciplic succession. He's reading from, his spiritual master. He's reading from, the prior acharyas that came before him, and he's pulling that into his purports. So he's not just making things up. He might be bringing it to a more relevant time frame, a time reference for us as we're reading it, but he's still giving that information, those purports through the parampara. So Now, going back to us as the, understanding our own desires, our own internal hankering, there's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, in chapter 22, there is very even just the introduction, which I'll read a little bit of the introduction, is very deep, and it gives us a really wonderful understanding of how we can cultivate ourselves as devotees, and be attracting that type of instruction, such as Maharaj Parikshit was able to attract Sukadev Goswami, and Maharaj Parikshit identifies that. He says, "You voluntarily appeared, though you're moving incognito to the common man, and are not visible to us who are on the verge of death." So somehow Maharaj Parikshit understood that he was very fortunate to have been receiving Sukadev Goswami, and he understood this to be a very significant blessing for his last days. And this is important to remember, that Maharaj Parikshit was identifying this as a very significant blessing coming his way, because he expressed it as something that's very rare, that because Sukadev Goswami is moving incognito, that means he's not your average sage just walking around on the streets preaching. He's only coming out for those that are truly deserving of this very transcendental knowledge. And so that's a really important consideration. So in the introduction to chapter 22 in the Madhya Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita, now remember, Chaitanya Charitamrita is an account, Krishna Kaviraj Das Goswami created this account of the time of Chaitanya, Lord Chaitanya's, his time here, on earth, 500 plus years ago. So this is an account. The only thing that Lord Chaitanya actually wrote and left behind for us were 8 beautiful verses called the Shikshastika prayers. And so if you ever have a chance to study those and read them, those are very important, because those were the only things that actually Lord Chaitanya left behind in terms of his own writings. But this is Chaitanya Charitamrita, is the account from Krishna Kaviraj Das Goswami. And he was a great disciple. So in chapter 22, this chapter is entitled "The Process of Devotional Service." And here it says, in the 22nd chapter, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu describes the process of devotional service. In the beginning, he describes the truth about the living entity and the super excellence of devotional service. He then describes the uselessness of mental speculation and mystic yoga. In all circumstances, the living entity is recommended to accept the path of devotional service as personally explained by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The speculative method of the so-called jnanis are considered a waste of time, and that is proved in this chapter. An intelligent person should abandon the process of karma kanda, jnana kanda, and mystic yoga. One should give up all these useless processes and take seriously to the path of Krishna consciousness. In this way, one's life will be successful. If one takes to Krishna consciousness fully, even though he may sometimes be agitated due to having previously practiced mental speculation and yogic mysticism, he will be saved by the Lord himself. The fact is that devotional service is bestowed by the blessings of a pure devotee. A pure devotee is the supreme transcendentalist, and one has to receive his mercy for one's dormant Krishna consciousness to be awakened. One has to associate with pure devotees. If one has firm faith in the words of a great soul, pure devotional service will be awakened. So it's really this understanding here is that we all have this desire inside of us for love of God. It's there for every single person. Every single person has that within them. It's dormant, though. And so when there's something in dormancy, how do we wake up? How do we awaken that dormant desire, right? Because we know that the material desires are not dormant. They are there and very active. And they might actually be overshadowing. The material desires might be so strong that they're overshadowing our desire to have a relationship with Krishna. So, so how do we awaken ourselves? Well, we can help awaken others if we've maybe awakened ourselves to the concept that, hey, there's something more out there. And if we're here sitting in Bhagavatam class on a Friday morning, then we're probably pretty much have figured out that there's something else there. We're at least awakened to the idea that there's something more than just the material energies out there. There's something more than just going to work, coming home, you know, taking care of the kids or the house or whatever there is, going out, having some enjoyment, coming back home and starting the whole work week again. So if we've already figured that out, then we can help others by just simply, you know, giving them access to certain mantras, as an example. What is the Maha Mantra really doing? The Maha Mantra, if someone starts to hear the Maha Mantra, because it's such a transcendental mantra, we're actually chanting the names of God, but we're asking the Lord to engage us, to awaken us, to engage us in devotional service. So when we are giving someone access to that mantra, just by letting them hear it, we can hope that that mantra is going to awaken at some point in someone this understanding, wait, why are they chanting this mantra? What does this mantra mean? It sounds comfortable. It sounds good to me. And, you know, I've been in kirtans, I've led kirtans so many times. And we always ask when we lead kirtans, we see a lot of new people coming into the kirtans, and we always ask them, have you been to a kirtan before? And so many people are, oh no, I've never been. I heard about it. It sounded interesting. So already they're seeing, okay, this word kirtan, this yogic, mystical yogic chanting, right? This, you know, this melodic chanting somehow seems interesting to them. So they come and they experience it. But then when we start talking about Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, people start to kind of, you can see them. They hear the mantra for the first time and somehow it just feels familiar, comfortable. Something just awakens in them. And I see it time and time and time again. I see people when they hear the mantra for the first time, they're just like, yeah, like it awakens something in them because we're sharing the name of the Lord. And we're sharing not just the name of the Lord, we're sharing the name of Krishna, and Krishna is the all attractive. So Krishna is the all attractive, you know, the name Krishna, it's all attractive one, but the all attractive also means that anyone that hears the name, that sees the Lord Krishna, they will be immediately attracted to his form, to his energies, to his, you know, to all aspects of him. So, and this is why the Krishna consciousness movement, why the Maha Mantra is so powerful in this day and age, because Krishna is presenting himself in this time, you know, for this time as the all attractive one, because goodness knows, we need something that's going to be all, you know, a form of Krishna, a God that's all attractive, because our minds are so diverted. So if there's something that's so attractive to our senses, to our heart, that draws us in, that's Krishna. That's where Krishna's potency can really shine in this era of Kali Yuga, because he is the all attractive one. And so this is that dormant. This is how that dormant love or that dormant desire can be awakened in others. And it doesn't have to be in the sense of, you know, we tell them, okay, you have to become a devotee, you have to do this, you have to do that. Let them hear, let them chant, you know, and for ourselves too. It's like giving ourselves the space to hear and to chant and understand what we're actually coming in contact with is that all attractiveness of Krishna. So, you know, it's like I said, it's a really powerful understanding that we can, you know, we can meditate on. And we can, like I said, we can just really meditate on. And this introduction goes on a little bit more to help us understand the characteristics of a pure devotee. So, and that's also too what we want to understand. So here it says in this chapter, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu differentiates between a pure devotee and others. He also describes the characteristics of a pure devotee. A devotee's most formidable enemy is association with women in the joy and spirit. So this is kind of like looking at that sannyas kind of Maharaj and associating with non-devotees. So the pure devotee is really someone that is looking at non-violence, pious activity, sense control, regulation, right? They are someone that have that love of God already. They're already situated in that love of God. And you know that because that's what they talk about. That's what they want to do. They want to engage themselves in those activities of pure devotional service. And so in our material space here, going back to knowing that Krishna is in our hearts as super soul, we know that because Krishna is there, we have this. Krishna doesn't he doesn't sit there and say, okay, you do this, you do that, you do that. A lot of times in the super soul space, we have this observation. The two birds on the branch is a common analogy used by Prabhupada, because he's saying that the super soul is sitting there, he's observing a lot, he's observing our activities to see what are we going to do. He's observing to see what are our choices, but he knows that all of the choices are there outlined for us. We can choose to work toward our Krishna consciousness and cultivating a relationship with him, or we can choose to continue to keep ourselves in ignorance and moving forward and deeper into material energies. So with that understanding of Krishna being in our hearts, then with Krishna being in Maharaj Parikshit's heart, because he's seated in all of our hearts, he saw that Maharaj Parikshit was very sincere. He was very much ready to receive these teachings. And so this is how he was able to come to this understanding of the rareness of Sukadeva Goswami appearing before him. And so if the devotee is sincere and the devotee appears and it appears to have that desire, then the Lord will facilitate. And this again is the Maya, Mahamaya, Yoga Maya, that in the desire for material energy, Mahamaya will continue to facilitate those desires. But when our desire turns toward wanting to cultivate a relationship with the Lord, Mahamaya will turn us over to Yoga Maya. Yoga Maya will then help facilitate those energies and bring us closer to Krishna. So being aware of our desires is a really important factor. So here in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, I'll just read a little bit of the purport, because this is it's what I'm talking about right now. So the translation again is, I am in everyone's heart as super soul. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod and make his faith steady, so he can devote himself to that particular deity. So here he's talking about demigod worship, but the Prabhupada talks about the worship a little bit broader. God has given independence to everyone. Right there. Okay. That's really important. God has given us all independence. He's not trying to command us. The modes of material nature do a very fine job of yanking us around. So Krishna doesn't have to say, do this, do that, do this, do that, because as soon as he gives us this independence, he's also put some things in place that are going to help remind us, perhaps, maybe not, that our actions have consequences, and that we are, there's these other energies involved in our desires. So it says, therefore, if a person desires to have material enjoyment and wants very sincerely to have such facilities from the material demigods, the Supreme Lord, as super soul in everyone's heart, understands and gives facilities to such persons. Right? So we think that God's only there to just, bring us back home, only if we want to. He's not he's not trying to create a relationship of forcing us against our will to do what he wants us to do. like I said, the karma and the modes of material nature create a cause and effect situation for us that can help us make decisions, hopefully. If we understand karma and we understand the modes of material nature, then perhaps we will finally wake up one morning and say, you know what, this isn't fun for me anymore. You know, this isn't working. And then we might awaken ourselves to the desire to turn our activities toward Krishna, toward doing more service, to aspiring toward devotional service. Because really, we can be doing service. I consider myself just doing service right now. I'm doing service with the hope of that will become devotional service. But is my mind fully absorbed? Sadly, no. It's just not. I try, but I'm not in full absorption. But I want to be someday. So I keep doing service, praying that someday it will become this full absorption of devotional service. That but we just keep trying. But Krishna sees our efforts. He sees our attempts. And when he sees our attempts, there's something called causeless mercy. Krishna's causeless mercy. We don't know why he does things. We don't know why Krishna suddenly gives us a little break. It's just because he wants to, because he sees something in us, maybe, that as a desire that maybe we're struggling with, that he wants to help us out with a little bit. So this is the causeless mercy of the Lord. But as it says here, the Supreme Father of all living, as the Supreme Father of all living entities, he does not interfere with their independence, but gives all facilities so they can fulfill their material desires. It's pretty clear. Some may ask why the all-powerful God gives facilities to the living entities for enjoying the material world, and so lets them fall into the trap of illusory energy. Why does Krishna let us go out too far? Why does Krishna let us get entangled? And Prabhupada says here, the answer is that if the Supreme Lord as Supersoul does not give such facilities, then there is no meaning to independence. This is a really interesting point. If you can't give independence, but then control it. If you're giving independence, you're giving independence. So Krishna is giving us the freedom to go out, make mistakes, engage with the material energies, see how much it can be some days very happy, some days very not happy, and let us navigate that and figure it out. And when he starts to see a little bit of a glint of understanding in us that says, I think there's something else out there. I think that there's Krishna, that God, I want to start understanding who God is. Then he starts to help us, nudge us in that direction. And that's a very beautiful thing. So just as a final wrap up for today's verse, Maharaj Parikshit really went through all of these things to get himself to the point of being a pure devotee who could receive Shukadev Goswami. He went through all of these processes, and this is why we read Srimad Bhagavatam, because we can see the activities of Krishna's esteemed devotees, and we can see what are they doing. Okay, how can I bring that into my own life? So I'll take a pause here, or just let some conversation bubble up, and please feel free to share reflections, corrections. I make lots of mistakes, so correct me if I mess anything up, and also any thoughts that you'd like to share.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Mataji, for a very nice lecture. So many points there. The purport also has so many things that could be talked about in the quotations, the Lord's presence in different places, 7th chapter and also the 15th chapter, really stressing the point about Krishna's superiority and the fact that we're better off when we take to devotion service rather than do these material things. Dear devotees, if you have any kind of questions or takeaway or realizations connected with this is the time to chime in and let's have a conversation. Krishna Katha, just unmute yourself and
chime in, even if it's unrelated and you just want to share a thought that popped into your head.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
I was just thinking, the two beautiful words that you used in the early part of your class, and I never thought of it that way. I think it was the first few minutes of your class where you said that Maharaj Parikshit gracefully accepted. I have never heard that the way it's put, gracefully accepted. I had to go, wow. And I had to go really deep, like inside me to say, how can I really accept the Lord, whatever he's doing, good or bad, with grace? So that's my question, Prabhu.
Not easy, right? Yeah, I mean, it's not easy. And I think accepting it with grace means that we are, seeing Krishna's hand in everything. And Krishna's hand in everything might be that we made a mistake and Krishna's helping us understand that mistake and correct us a little bit, which can be painful. And being a little bit self-reflective in those difficult times. It requires a bit of a slowness that I think is important to consider. I just wrote a blog article about this recently. Actually, I just started a new blog called Bhakti Meditations, and I wrote an article on it and about slowness and how in our lives we kind of get into this moving fast, things are moving fast, but we can't really access that deeper wisdom unless we slow down a little bit, slow our minds down, take that pause. And I think that's where taking things with grace comes from, is that if we're just constantly moving through things so quickly, that we don't take time to pause and reflect and say, where is this coming from? What is this situation? Then we might be reactive versus just slowing down and seeking that internal wisdom around a situation. Because every situation has a cause and effect. Every situation has, I believe, to be some internal understanding. And if we can go in a little bit deeper and pray and meditate on that internal wisdom, that time might even be just opening up the Bhagavad Gita, which I do a lot. I've been trying to open up at the end of the day, I'll take like the first third, the middle third, and the last third of a Bhagavad Gita and just open up to a verse in each and read them. And, a lot of times the verse will reflect something that I might have been struggling with in that day. And I'm like, that's okay. Wow. I can really take that to heart. And so that, that moving through life with grace is challenging, but it is a daily practice, and it starts with small things, I think. And then when we can conquer small things with grace or handle small things with grace, then we can start, seeing the bigger things in life and handling those with grace as well. I think I have yet to perfect any process of handling much of anything with grace, but it's, that's kind of my thought on it.
No, probably very nice, because I definitely see the importance of stopping and be still. Whenever I hear the word be still, I think of my Christian days when we have this hymn, be still and know that I am the Lord.
Yeah.
I used to love, that's one of my favorite hymns actually when I was a Christian, because it really helps us to stop and think and reflect. And I think as devotees, practicing devotees, we always forget to do that. We react like firecrackers. We don't stop, we don't think, we don't reflect within ourselves. We're very quick to point back, but we don't really think, why is this bothering me? What is lacking? Or, what's missing? Something. You know what I mean? And seeing what is Krishna teaching me? Like you said, what is the lesson in it for me in this situation, rather than reacting as firecrackers? So, and I think the more we do that, I don't know, hopefully we'll develop some grace like March Brigshit did.
I
But
hope so. I'm trying. I hope
I'm
someday I
trying
can
to,
develop
Prabhu.
some.
But yes, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Haribol.
Haribol, yeah, I think it's just human nature to just respond, and the material world is just so hectic. And, I mean, for me personally, I broke my ankle in January, and and I was it threw me for a loop, and I was kind of laid up, I'm just broken ankle, you can't do much. So and it just really spun me out, and I was like, okay, I need to really just recalibrate, and think about how I can create more time for reflection and slowing down and writing more. This is where my blog kind of was birthed during my convalescing, and taking that slower time for myself too. So, sometimes we get hit with things that force us, enforce a slowdown, to reflect on things when, especially if they're, things might be going into a spin. We have to be careful, because sometimes Krishna or Maya or the material energies will put it upon us. And that's tougher. So
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for nice assessment of this. It's not easy to know.
yeah.
I have a question myself, and it's from the purport. Prabhupada talked about a person's desire, if a devotee's desire is to go back to Godhead, then Krishna would arrange for a spiritual master to come. But he also put a condition there that going back to Godhead, even with a spiritual master, that arrangement made depends on the sincerity of the devotee.
Yeah.
So my question is, how can there's always room for improvement when it comes to sincerity.
Yeah.
So what are some of the tips that can help devotees to increase their sincerity?
Well, I think sincerity is a matter of the heart. It's one of those things that as we work towards softening our hearts, then the sincerity will increase. I think that when we find ourselves on this path, we may have had different reasons for coming to the path. They say that, the four types of people that come to the Lord: distress, for money, intelligence, and pure knowledge. And so where were we when we were coming to this path? And the sincerity, I think, depends on our own goals in life. If we are still in our minds thinking, okay, what am I going to be doing with my life, and how am I, we still have to plan out our material life. That's goes without saying. But if we're not incorporating activities that are bringing us closer to our relationship with Krishna, that then we're going to just kind of get stuck in a spin cycle. So we could still do the activities required of us as a devotee, but if we're not shifting our mind and our heart, it really is our hearts. We can't wrangle sincerity. Like I said, if you're either sincere or you're not, and if you're not so sincere, then that's a question of softening the heart and really understanding what our true motives are. In my opinion. So the sincerity comes from a true willingness to see ourselves as, as subordinate to the Lord, which can be difficult. We may intellectually say, I'm subordinate to the Lord, but in our activities, we may still be lording over our activities. And so if we sincerely see ourselves as subordinate to the Lord, that's going to help us in our process, because then that true humility comes in. And it's not the humility of like, oh, I'm a horrible person, I'm this, I'm that. It's the humility of like, I am insignificant in light of the Lord. I'm really, I see the greatness of the Lord, and I just want to recognize the Lord's energies in me. Like I said, that's my take on it. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you. There's so much we picked up. You analyzed it, you went on different angles, which is very, 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 very good. To me, it's like ultimately we have to train the mind what the goal is and go after it so that the mind will be accustomed to doing things right. But when you were talking, I also heard in my mind the word Niyamagraha. Niyamagraha is in
Very much
the
so.
nectar of instruction. And sometimes devotees, we get caught up in that, we do things mechanically. There's the thing to do that we do, but we don't know why. And sometimes things that they were supposed to do, we don't do them. So that's under the category of Niyamagraha. So you have to be very, very, very careful there.
Yeah.
Meet Niyamagraha, you will be sincere.
Niyamagraha is a really important concept. And I remember studying Nectar of Devotion, that one really kind of just hit me over the head like a sledgehammer. Because it's really heavy, because it's really, like you said, it's a concept. I mean, Niyamagrahas, people mostly look at it as, oh, you're just ignorantly, willfully ignoring the regulations. But people don't recognize the subtlety of Niyamagraha, which is following all of the rules and regulations without any consciousness. And that is where that subtlety, like I said, hit me over the head like a sledgehammer, because it is so important. Because everyone focuses on the not following part. They don't think about that they might be mechanically following and following without any sort of true purpose or goal. And that's tricky. So there's a comment.
Thank you very much. There is Dear Krishna Prabhu has left text in the chat. Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to the Prabhupada. Thank you for the great class. How to get rid of the mentality of controllership, ownership, and proprietorship in our Krishna consciousness life. Sometimes we might bring these materialistic tendencies into a devotional service without even realizing it.
We all do it.
So, how to get rid of the mentality of controlling.
Yeah, it's practice. I mean, I think that, we're here lifetime after lifetime. To have gotten to this point in Krishna consciousness, we were probably practicing in some form or fashion in prior lifetimes. So, it's a lesson in kind of patience, but the idea of proprietorship over and lording over these materialistic tendencies, well, it's just part of the human conditioning. And I think part of it is to acknowledge that this is part of our the conditioning of the living entity. We are here in the material energies because we wanted to be. We're not back in, Vrindavan with Krishna, we're not in Goloka Vrindavan with Krishna, obviously, because we wanted to be here. So that is one of the flaws of the living entity, right? We think we can lord over things, and because we wanted our independence, that's how we landed here. So we're trying to get over some pretty tough conditioning that precedes our birth. So I think part of it is just really taking to heart that understanding that if we were able to conquer this so easily, we would have very easily been able to go back home, back to Godhead. So I think part of it is the gentleness of recognizing that we have come with these conditionings and we're all struggling with it. And that rather than seeking perfection, it's seeking love. Krishna, I think Krishna is in my heart, I feel Krishna is not looking for absolute perfection. He wants to see sincerity and devotion. And devotion comes from a deep desire to want to have a relationship with the Lord. So I think sometimes we can get ourselves spun out and think we have to be perfect in all of our Krishna consciousness activities and be perfectly withdrawn from material energies and be perfectly, surrendered. And I think that's really hard. But I think the more that we are sincere, again, it's sincerity is a matter of the heart. The more sincere we are in our desire to cultivate a relationship with Krishna, Krishna accepts our misgivings. when he sees that the sincerity is there, then he'll help facilitate our surrender and help facilitate our consciousness in a way that will, bring us back. And also just, continuing to, read Prabhupada and to hear the great, to study the great Vaishnavas and to spend time with those that we feel are really elevating to us. Because the more that we have conversations and share with those that are elevating to us, the more that we also can absorb that, that way of being, and it softens our hearts too. So that's the sadhu sangha, so those are some thoughts anyway.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And so yeah, I think you want to add something?
Yeah, actually, you touched on a very nice point, Vrindavanesvari. If I could add a little bit, if that's okay with you.
Please, yeah.
When you mentioned the word, that we have to become deep lover, right, or deep love, to have deep love for Krishna, my mind tends to always go back to our material situations, like when we want to have a deep love for our spouse, our children, family, whatever, we have to give up some stuff. It involves some heart cleansing. Their narcos come out. So I think that, while we're in the process of really, the more I think, the more we want to go deep in our love with Krishna, the more stuff comes out to make, like you said, the heart softer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. I mean, yeah. And we are given, so it's like the banyan tree, right? So the banyan tree has the branches facing up that are, the spiritual energies, and the branches facing down, which is kind of like the material energies. And so when we think about that, we're have to cutting these attachments, but it's not easy. And so we have this reflection of the spiritual world here, but it's a perverted reflection of the spiritual world here. And so it's like a training ground, but there's like hiccups and there's things that throw us off, and it's not easy, and it's not just filled with all happiness, joy, and love, and then it's challenging. And so but we can see things in the material world as opportunities to cultivate love, that love that we feel for a loved one, a child, a spouse, a parent. That love, if we remember that love is really a love that we could grow upon, and that's just a small fraction of the love we could have for Krishna. So with each person in our life that we have a deep love for, if we just are reminding ourselves that love is a fraction of what we could have for Krishna, we can just keep remembering this love is just a small fraction of the love I can have for Krishna. And just imagine if I grow that love for my child or my spouse or whatever, and put that toward Krishna too, right? So we can use that love in our lives, not as a way to say, oh, I'm too attached, but to say, this can help me. This trains my heart to open up and to soften in a love with Krishna. And I joke, we don't have children, so we kind of skipped that route, but I got a puppy, and I tell my devotee friends, I joke, and I don't joke, actually I joke, but I'm very sincere in saying this, that my puppy is teaching me how to love Krishna more, because she's teaching me compassion, she's teaching me patience, and she's softening my heart. And I think every single day when I look at her, I think to my little Leela Manjari, I say to her, I'm just like, Leela, you're softening my heart for Krishna. You're preparing my heart to love Krishna more deeply. And I thank her for that, because it's a sweetness. It's a sweetness that can help us cultivate our love.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So many angles that you took this to. This is wonderful to kind of soften our heart.
Yeah.
Dear Simple responded, says, thank you, Mataji. This is on the chat. I also like the point you mentioned. What is our real intention?
Yeah.
It says, just that thought might help to bring a consciousness on the right track and also soften our heart. So this is how he responded to. And if you don't mind, I know it's past the hour. I'm just going to piggyback on the response you gave for one text that came to mind. And this is especially for those of us that are kind of, our hearts are kind of hardcore and our minds are kind of hardcore in this, how do you develop sincerity? Just understanding Krishna's point. Bhoktaram yagyata prasad sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam. Before you get peace. Yeah, so he said that the peace formula. But it also very much answers this question, at least the way it's hitting me, that when we understand that Krishna is the benefactor of all sacrifices and austerities. Sacrifice and austerities. This is a person who's hardcore that wants to be the controller. But Krishna is the benefactor. And he also is the controller of everything that is. So here we go. So we cannot compare ourselves to Krishna because he's a supreme controller. But he's also, and then he softens and says, I'm a friend of every living entity.
All wish of all
You
living
know?
entities.
Yeah, so accept him as a controller, accept him that everything that we're doing goes to him. He's a benefactor. And then he's also a friend. Then not only will we not be thinking we're controllers, but also we will actually be peaceful in mind too.
Yeah.
But I thought I'd add that to that. Yeah.
Thank
That's
you.
the
That's
last text.
wonderful. I
in
think is that
chapter
Bhagavad
5.
Gita 536?
529, the very last one.
529.
529.
For those of you who are wondering, it's called the Peace Formula. It's a great verse. So
Yeah.
wanting to
Yeah.
look that up afterwards. Bhagavad Gita 529 is the Peace Formula.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Nice discussion today, everyone. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Any last comments before we go?
And Raj, thank you so much. I was so glad you could make the class.
Yes. Hare Krishna. So, all right, without any, no more comments then or no questions, then we thank you very much, Vrindavanesvari Mataji, for coming on to have a very nice discussion. And always your class has part class, part counseling, and part Shastra. So all fused in one. So it is very nice. You learn so much from it. Thank you again. Panchakalpatarubhasya kripa sindhave eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Bye. Hare Krishna.
Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Hare.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.